tell you a story, okay? I'm going to tell you a story about how old are you? 10. About some 10-year-old people, young ladies and young boys who were in school. Okay? And as they were sitting in school, their teacher said to them, who is it that is the greatest person alive on earth? Can you think of that? What would you say? Anyway, let me get on with my story. She's too smart for me. She's too smart for me. Because that is the answer. That's a wonderful answer. Did anybody hear her answer? Okay, then I'll tell you the story. Okay? The first child said that it was his mom and dad because they take care of him. That's good. The second one said, oh, maybe it's the Pope because the Pope does something very nice. And the other one said it might be the Archbishop of Canterbury because he runs the Church of England. And they went on and on and on. And finally they came to this young little girl by the name of Ava. And she said to Ava, she said, who is the greatest person alive on earth? And Ava said, God. Jesus Christ, right? Jesus Christ is the greatest person alive on earth. And the teacher said, well, wait a minute, Ava. How can you say that? Okay? Jesus lived 2,000 years ago. He lived and he died 2,000 years ago. So why don't you pick someone else? And what would you say to that? No? Okay. So Ava said, well, no, because that's not what I was taught. What I was taught was that Jesus Christ is alive. Am I right? And Jesus Christ is alive because he lives where? Anybody? In us. In our hearts. Right? And that's what happens. That's when we talk about, we say that Jesus is alive. That Jesus is alive through us. Now, let me put it this way. The best thing that any church can say, the best declaration that any church can dedicate to its people, to the community, is not that we have this program, we have that program, we have the largest youth group, we have the best choir, we probably do. I mean, right? No. You know, it goes on and on and on. The best thing that any church can say to the community is what? Is that we're alive because Jesus lives. And Jesus is alive because we're alive. I know I'm talking in circles, stay with me. Because we're alive to live so that we can tell other people that Jesus is what? Alive. Now the trouble is, what I usually find out is that we celebrate Easter. That's the biggest celebration of the year, isn't it? It was great. We all sing. It's just a wonderful time. Let me tell you something. When you left here on Easter morning, did you feel alive? You felt really good, really something special because something special really happened. And it wasn't because, Ava, that we had that big basket full of candy, right? You're probably still eating that candy, am I right? Did you get a basket of candy? That's good, so you should just stay with Jesus. Oh, she's wonderful. But anyway, you know, we're still, some people, they celebrate Easter, but they celebrate it for one day. And it's almost like the Easter lilies. Okay, let's pick this up. Take a look at that Easter lily. Isn't that beautiful? It's still alive. Okay? But it was more alive a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it? And by next week, it may not be as alive as it is right now. So it starts to wither. Okay? It starts to lose a little bit of its life. It's almost like us. Alright? We're really alive at Easter time. Then all of a sudden, after Easter, we start to lose that life. We start to lose that enthusiasm that Jesus was risen from the dead. Don't we? And nobody knows that more than the priests. Alright? Because I always say Lent is the time when the priests get killed. Because by the time Easter comes and Easter celebration is over, we all want to just go home, put the covers over our head and go to sleep for at least the next 2 weeks. Because it's been such a long stretch. But I can imagine what Jesus must have went through. You know, the thing with us is that we followed Jesus, didn't we? We just got through with 40 days of Lent, actually 50 because you have to count the weekends. Okay? So that's still long. You went through 40 days of Lent, as they say. You followed Jesus all through the dark and dingy times. You followed him through the Garden of Gethsemane. You were with him when he stood before Caiaphas, and Caiaphas told him he was guilty. You watched him as he was persecuted by the Romans and beaten and dragged. You were with him when they crucified him on Golgotha. You were with him when they put him in the tomb. And you know something? There's some people who are still in the tomb. They forgot that the stone was rolled away. They still haven't come alive yet. They still don't realize what happened. It's almost like today's gospel. Jesus came back and he saw 11 disciples. They're all standing there. And he appears in front of them and he says, peace of the Lord be with you. And the first thing they do is, oh, I can't believe this. And what do you think Jesus, how do you think he must have felt? What do you think he must have said to them? He said, do you think I lied? Do you think I didn't tell you the truth? You 11 guys, you've been with me all this time. And I told you exactly what was going to happen. I told you exactly what I was going to do. And I told you that on the third day, you thought I was dead. But guess what? I am what? Alive. You're alive. If I'm alive, you're alive. Do you get it, guys? And they all stood there and they said, wow, maybe he's right. Of course he's right. Because Jesus is always right. He's never wrong. He leads you to a life of being alive in him. And you and I could probably look at those disciples and just say, what a bunch of idiots. I shouldn't say that, should I, in church? No. But we could. We could say that to those people. We could say something bad about them. That's 2,000 years ago. You and I have the benefit of 2,000 years later that everything was compiled for us nice and neat. From the prophets of the Old Testament to the Gospels of the New Testament. And it was all put together for us nice and neatly. So you and I could sit there and read it and believe. We didn't go through it. We didn't go through the bits and pieces. We weren't with the disciples when all of a sudden their world fell apart. How many of you have been through a situation where your world fell apart and then all of a sudden it came right back together again, better than it was before it fell apart? Do you ever have those experiences? You say, I wonder how that happened. Well, that's what happened to them. They lost their leader. Jesus supposedly was dead. The Jews were out after them to persecute them and kill them. So you can imagine how they must have felt. But once he appeared to them, and once he imbued their minds and their souls and their hearts with the idea that life is worth living because of him, the world changed. Changed. And it changed so much that you and I are sitting here right now giving thanks and praise to who? Who is what? Alive. What does alive mean? You want to come here. You know, it's not drudgery getting out of bed to come to church, although it is for some people. I know a lot of people, it looks like they took today off. Where's Father Brad, by the way? No, I'm kidding. He's on a day off. He's on a day off. I don't want to hear from that. Where's Liz? Oh, she's on a day off. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is, you come here because you want to come here. You come here because we love each other, don't we, as a community? We come here because we want to pray, we want to sing, we want to help, we want to love, we want to grow, we want to be alive in Christ. You know, Ava, you're right. You're right. From the mouth of children, said God, the word of God shall be spoken. A child sits there and I ask her a question. I thought I could trick her. I should have known better. When I say who is the greatest person alive in your life and in this world, it is God. It is Jesus. And how do you find him? In you. Look at you. And don't fall asleep, because I'll wake you up. I know I can preach and bore you to death. Stay awake. Stay alive. Because Christ is risen. The Lord has risen indeed. Hallelujah.